My childhood sweetheart fell for a biker punk, the kind who'd have her on the back of his motorcycle, no helmets, tearing down the highway. She called it thrilling, insisting that your youth was meant to be lived in a blaze of glory. Terrified for her safety, I told her parents. They were split up. Not long after, the punk was killed, smashed by a car while street racing. He died instantly. I was just glad I'd saved her. After that, Chloe seemed to forget he ever existed. She buckled down and focused on her studies. But one night, she slipped sleeping pills into my drink. She dragged my body onto the road and ran me over with her car. The headlights lit up her face, twisted with rage. "This is your fault. If you hadn't stuck your nose where it didn't belong, Ryder never would have died." A wave of agony washed over me. I looked down at the ruined mess of my own body, my organs surely pulverized, and fury flooded my brain. Now, Reborn, the rotten girl I once loved, is back, ready to ruin my life all over again. When it felt like nearly every bone in my body was shattered. A metallic taste, the coppery tang of my own blood, filled my mouth and nose. Still not satisfied, Chloe Miller put the car in reverse and rolled over me again. The pain was so immense it became a dull, throbbing numbness. The world went quiet, the sounds fading until even Chloe's curses dissolved into silence. I knew I was dying. I was furious. I was filled with regret. I couldn't bear to imagine the grief this would bring my parents. I couldn't believe I was going to die just before my college graduation, right at the moment when the endless grind of studying was finally over and my life was supposed to begin. Just an hour earlier, Chloe and I had been sharing a bottle of wine. We were on the verge of graduating, talking about the future, completely at ease. I watched her slightly flushed face from across the table, trying to decide on the right moment to give her the bouquet of lilies of the valley I had waiting. They were her favorite. I'd rushed to a flower shop to buy them the second she invited me over. A degree from a top university, a great job offer lined up. I finally had the courage to take a chance to see if she might feel the same way. But before I could figure out what to say, after a few glasses, my limbs suddenly went slack. I slumped to the side and collapsed onto the floor. Chloe stood up, looking down at me. The smile was gone, replaced by a cold mask. I stared up in shock at the girl I'd known for over a decade. Why? I didn't understand. I couldn't fathom what she was doing. "It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, Ryder wouldn't be dead." Her beautiful face contorted into an ugly sneer. "Did you know that when Ryder died, the impact sent his head flying right off his body?" She walked over, hoisted me up by my arms, and started dragging me out of the house. Ryder? I tried to place the name, but my mind was a foggy, chaotic mess. I couldn't think straight. I sensed the danger, but the drug had rendered me helpless. I was just conscious enough to be aware, but too weak to struggle, completely at her mercy. I had it all planned out with Ryder. We were going to meet my parents after graduation. "Why? Why did you have to tear us apart?" she seethed. "After we broke up, I knew he was hurting. He'd go street racing when he was upset. I was so worried, but my parents had me on lockdown. I could only watch him go off to die." Her voice grew more frantic as she dragged me into the underground parking garage. It was almost dawn. The garage was deserted. My last glimmer of hope vanished. Hearing the details, a memory finally broke through the haze. A biker punk who died racing at night, thrown from his motorcycle in a fatal collision. Chloe dropped me on the concrete floor and crossed her arms. "It's time to repent. I've hated you for 4 years," she screamed. "Why should he get to live while my Ryder is dead?" Laughing, she got into a car parked nearby. The sound of the engine turning over was my death knell. I tried to move my lips to explain that I only did it to keep her safe. If they hadn't been broken up, she would have been on the back of that bike with him. She would have died, too. But I couldn't speak. I couldn't even shake my head. The headlights blazed directly at me, illuminating the terror on my face. "Now you get to feel what Ryder felt," she shrieked, a maniacal grin spreading across her face as she slammed her foot on the gas. The crushing impact shocked my system, and in that final moment of agony, I remembered everything. Ryder was the boyfriend Chloe had lost in the crash. 2. "Hey, let me copy your homework, quick." Chloe slid in her seat, right as the GRE prep class was starting, frantically digging through her backpack. I frowned. "You didn't do it again?" Both Chloe and I were in this intensive course. She was smarter than me, and usually more diligent. She never missed an assignment. But this was the third time this week she'd asked to copy mine. Chloe just shrugged. So I missed a few days of practice problems. What's the big deal? She had a point. It's not like she'd forget everything in a few days. Resigned, I reached into my backpack. As I was about to hand her my assignment, a flood of memories washed over me. My past life. She'd said the exact same thing back then. I gave her my homework, thinking we grew up together, it's just copying an assignment, no big deal. But after that, Chloe got bolder, asking to copy nearly every practice test and assignment. Her scores started to slide. I didn't know what was going on until one day I caught a glimpse of her phone's lock screen. A photo of her with some punks smoking a cigarette. That's when I realized Chloe had a boyfriend. We were in the final stretch before the exam. This was the worst possible time for a distraction. When I asked her about it, she reluctantly told me the truth. She met a guy online who dropped out of community college. He was funny and edgy, and he promised to take her for a ride on his motorcycle. They met up, and Chloe fell for him instantly. Her face was glowing when she told me about him. He's literally the perfect man. I urged her to focus on studying, to just get through the GRE first, but she just looked at me with disdain. It's just one test. I'm smart enough. It's not that hard, she said dismissively. Besides, Ryder said he'll take care of me. He won't care what my score is. Seeing that I couldn't change her mind, I dropped it. Then one day, I saw her on the back of his sport bike. Her long hair flew behind her as they laughed, weaving through traffic. The engine roared as they sped past me. The bike was going too fast, wobbling unstably down the road. Neither of them was wearing a helmet. I knew how incredibly dangerous that was. Terrified she was going to get herself killed, I went to her house and told her parents what was going on. They were furious. With their intervention, she and Ryder broke up. I breathed a sigh of relief. A few days later, I saw a local news report online. A young man on a motorcycle had been killed in a collision. It was him. I felt a profound sense of relief, certain that my intervention had saved Chloe's life. After Ryder's death, it was as if Chloe forgot he ever existed. She threw herself back into her studies, and we both ended up getting into excellent graduate programs. I never heard her mention him again, and eventually I forgot about him too. I thought that, like me, she had matured and realized how foolish she had been, healing and moving on with time. I never imagined Ryder's memory was so deeply ingrained in her heart. We went to grad schools in different cities, but kept in touch. The year we were set to graduate, Chloe invited me back to our hometown for dinner. I was happy to go. I never expected her to drug me. She must have misjudged the dose. I was paralyzed but not unconscious. I was aware of everything as Chloe dragged me into the elevator and down to the parking garage, her voice dripping with venom. Why are you still alive when my Ryder is dead? You should be the one who's dead, you pathetic little snitch. I want you to feel Ryder's pain. I watched, helpless, as she drove the car straight at me, running me over. In my last moments, all I could think about was how heartbroken my parents would be. I was enraged. This wasn't fair. I never thought I'd get a second chance. 3 after the memories of my past life settled, I looked at Chloe's face with a new, complicated understanding. I had to admit, back then, my heart ached a little when I found out she had a boyfriend. We'd grown up together, and I developed a crush on her. But Chloe was beautiful and brilliant, and I was just average. I never dared to imagine myself as the one standing by her side, and I never confessed my feelings. That's why I waited so long in my previous life, only finding the courage to pursue her after I felt I had achieved something significant. What are you staring at? Hurry up, we're going to be late. Chloe's impatient voice snapped me back to the present. She gave me a shove. She had always taken my obedience for granted and never considered the possibility that I would refuse. And I didn't plan to refuse. I offered a small smile, paused for a second, and then pulled out a notebook and handed it to her. She snatched it and turned away without another word. 10 minutes into our first class, Chloe was called out by the teacher. Our instructor, Mr. Peterson, held up her notebook, his voice sharp. What is this, Chloe? Do you even know which assignment this is? Didn't the questions look familiar to you at all? He chided. I could almost forgive the wrong answers, but these are problems we've covered in class. How are your steps this disorganized? You need to ask yourself if you've been paying any attention at all. I've noticed a real decline in your attitude lately. I want to see you in my office after class. Mr. Peterson was a stern, older teacher who didn't mince words. The entire class held its breath. I snuck a glance at Chloe. She was looking down, her face flushed with humiliation. Of course, she had carefully cultivated an image of a brilliant, untouchable goddess. Her pride was immense. She'd never been reprimanded like this before. As for the homework, I smiled to myself. I had intentionally given her my rough draft from a different assignment I'd completed a few days ago. I knew her mind was elsewhere, and she wouldn't be paying enough attention to notice. The steps and solutions were a chaotic mess. I was almost impressed she'd managed to copy it all down so faithfully. The moment class ended, Chloe stormed over to my desk. "Ethan, what the hell? Were you trying to screw me over? I trusted you, and you gave me the wrong assignment." I put on an innocent expression. "I had no idea. You were in such a hurry, I just grabbed the first notebook I saw and gave it to you. I didn't have time to check what was inside." Chloe's face faltered as she remembered snatching the notebook from me that morning, but she still demanded an apology. "This is your fault. You got me yelled at by Mr. Peterson. Apologize to me." "Now," she demanded, glaring. This time I wasn't having it. "Why should I? I'm not the one who told you to copy my work," I said, rolling my eyes. Chloe was stunned. The ever-compliant Ethan Hayes had never spoken to her like that. She was speechless. Our argument was loud enough to attract attention. A classmate nearby muttered, "Wow, pretty arrogant for someone who's cheating off someone else." Chloe's face burned with embarrassment. She shot me one last dirty look and stalked off. "I didn't know the class genius was like that," someone else whispered. After our fight, Chloe started giving me the cold shoulder. She talked to the people in front of me, behind me, and next to me, but pointedly ignore me. In my past life, I would have been scrambling to apologize. But now, her behavior just seemed childish and absurd. We didn't speak a single word to each other for the rest of the day, and I suddenly realized that Chloe didn't occupy as much space in my life as I thought. Without her, I actually had more time. I didn't have to run out to get her coffee or help her organize her study notes. I could focus entirely on my own work. I started to wonder what I ever saw in her. She offered me no support. In fact, my life was significantly better without her in it. 6 the next morning, Chloe rushed into the classroom, a whirlwind of motion as always. She reached in her desk, felt around, and then froze. She whipped her head around to look at me, a wounded expression on her face. I pretended not to notice, continuing to review my flashcards without missing a beat. I had stopped bringing her breakfast. In my last life, Chloe always complained about being too tired to get up in time for breakfast. Worried she'd develop stomach problems, I started buying an extra coffee and bagel for her every morning. She never once said thank you, just accepted it as her due. That was Chloe, outliving a thrilling life with her biker boyfriend while I served as her personal assistant during our study sessions. I poured my heart into being good to her, but she took it all for granted, as if it was something I owed her. This time, I wasn't going to coddle her. After class, she confronted me. "Why didn't you bring me breakfast today? Do you have any idea how hungry I am? Where is it? Stop playing games with me and just give it to me," she demanded. She thought I was still sulking from our fight, hiding her breakfast to get her to come ask for it. She was so confident that I would never actually neglect her. Where did she get that confidence? Facing the impatient girl in front of me, I put down my book. "Why should I bring you breakfast? Am I your personal butler?" Her expression shifted from surprise to outrage. "You just sit there and watch me starve? We've known each other for years. I can't believe you're this petty." I scoffed internally. "We've known each other for years, but that didn't stop you from running me over with a car." When she saw that I wasn't going to budge, she finally accepted that I hadn't gotten her anything. She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Fine. Ethan Hayes, I'm telling you, we're done. Don't you ever come looking for me again." As she turned to leave, I quickly called out to her. She spun back around, a smug look on her face that screamed, "I knew it." "You can pay me back for all the breakfasts I bought you," I said. "Unless you're not planning on paying me, are you?" Her face darkened. She ignored me and hurried away. 7 that day, Chloe couldn't find anyone to let her copy their homework. Many of our classmates had overheard our argument the day before, and no one wanted to get involved. Who would want to help someone only to get blamed for it later? Only the previous version of me was foolish enough to sign up for that kind of treatment. Chloe looked like she was on the verge of tears. Mr. Peterson had just chewed her out yesterday. If she failed to turn in a satisfactory assignment today, he might actually call her parents. Just then, Liam Johnson, the class president, spoke up. "It's just a homework assignment. You can copy mine." He then shot a pointed look in my direction. I'm not petty like some people, especially not to a girl. I ignored him. In my past life, Liam was always trailing after Chloe, and he'd been openly hostile toward me, her supposed childhood friend. Just another simp. Yet on my way home from class, I saw Chloe and Ryder out on his bike again. Still no helmets. Chloe's hair whipped around in the wind, and the deafening roar of the engine was audible from 2 blocks away. To show off, Ryder wasn't just riding without gear. He was actively swerving in and out of traffic, cutting off cars. The cacophony of angry honks behind them was just background music to their laughter. Laugh it up, I thought. You won't have many more chances. I glanced at them, wondering how long it would be before they crashed and burned. Chloe saw me. From the back of the bike, she shot me a defiant smirk. This time, I had no intention of getting involved in their drama. If Chloe ended up in a wreck with Ryder, she would have no one to blame but herself. 9 when I got home, the lights in Chloe's house across the street were still off. We had grown up as neighbors, and our families were close. In my past life, if I saw her house dark this late, I would have waited anxiously, unable to sleep until I saw her light turn on. But now I paid it no mind. I drew my curtains and started on my homework. From now on, I was focusing on myself. I had just finished reviewing the day's material and was about to get ready for bed when someone knocked on my door. It was Mr. Miller. "Ethan, have you seen Chloe?" "That girl, she's still not home." I looked at her father's worried face and felt nothing. In my past life, after I died, her family had begged and pleaded with my parents not to press charges against Chloe. "Your son is already dead. Why do you have to drag my daughter down with him? She just graduated from college," they had cried. They never stopped to consider that I, too, had just graduated, that I had also fought my way out of this small town, and that my parents had placed all their hopes in me as well. Thinking of this, I put on a puzzled expression. "No, I haven't. We haven't really been in touch lately." "She's not home yet, Mr. Miller." He looked at me suspiciously, trying to peer into the house behind me. "Ethan, are you home alone tonight?" As we were talking, Chloe came strolling down the street, a wide smile on her face. When she saw us, the smile vanished, replaced by surprise. "Dad, what are you guys doing out here?" The moment he saw his daughter, Mr. Miller's expression soured. "Where have you been so late? Do you have any idea how worried we were?" he scolded. They continued their conversation as they went inside and shut the door. Chloe's family life wasn't great. Her biological mother had passed away when she was young, and her stepmother had a son from a previous marriage. From then on, Mr. Miller became distant and indifferent toward his daughter. While she never went without food or clothing, he often said things like, "A daughter is water poured out of the house." His concern for her was all for show. If a normal parent's daughter was out until almost midnight, they would have been out searching for her long ago. The only reason Chloe was able to go out late night joyriding with Ryder so many times in our past life was because her parents weren't paying attention. Even when I told them, they were initially reluctant to interfere. It was only when they learned that Ryder's family was poor and likely couldn't afford a respectable dowry that they decided to step in. When Chloe insisted on going to grad school, Mr. Miller was furious and cut her off financially. In my last life, I felt sorry for her. I admired her resilience, managing to achieve so much despite her difficult home environment. Once I started earning money, I gave her a lot, both openly and subtly. Chloe would always say she wanted to be self-reliant, but she never refused my money or gifts. I just assumed her pride kept her from expressing gratitude and didn't think much of it. Looking back now, I was just a fool. 11, I don't know how Chloe's family dealt with the situation, but the next day, she showed up to class looking perfectly normal. The moment she arrived at the prep center, she issued a warning. "You'd better keep your mouth shut about things that don't concern you." I replied, "I don't have time to be gossiping about your life." "You'd better not," she said, clearly not believing me. Whether she believed me or not, I truly had no intention of getting involved in her affairs again. I became increasingly engrossed in my studies. I discovered that by learning everything a second time, many concepts that had been difficult in my past life now seemed to click into place, as if a mental block had been removed. Even Mr. Peterson started to take a special interest in me. I was never a gifted student. I had to rely on hard work to improve my grades. Math was my weakest subject, so I made a point of seeking out Mr. Peterson for extra help every day. Although he was strict, he was also very patient. As a veteran teacher, he had seen all types of students. After spending time with me, he understood the best way to help me learn and gave me a lot of valuable advice. "Keep up the good work, son," he said one day, looking over a practice test I completed, a rare, satisfied smile on his face. I was finally getting the hang of it, and my motivation soared. 12 Chloe and Ryder had a massive fight. It started after a monthly practice exam. Chloe's score had dropped significantly. Meanwhile, because my math score had improved so much, my overall rank was, for the first time ever, higher than hers. Chloe pretended not to care, but I knew she was panicking about falling behind. She threw herself into her studies for a few days, which inevitably meant she was neglecting Ryder. It didn't take long for her to discover that Ryder was already seeing another girl, taking her out on his bike, just like he used to with her. Chloe, of course, couldn't stand it. They had a screaming match right outside the prep center. In that moment, she forgot all about her pride and her public image. The crowd of students gathering around did nothing to lower the volume of their argument. The usually arrogant Chloe was practically begging, while Ryder just looked annoyed. It was only when Chloe realized where they were that they finally stormed off, still arguing. Plenty of people witnessed the scene outside the prep center. The gossip spread like wildfire, and eventually, it reached Mr. Miller. He was livid. The walls in our old houses were thin, and I could hear his furious roars and Chloe's crying for my own home. The shouting didn't die down until late into the night. I thought Mr. Miller had finally calmed down, but a few moments later, my doorbell rang. "Who is it?" I peered through the peephole, but it was too dark to see anyone. Just as I was about to walk away, I heard Chloe's choked voice. "It's me," I frowned. "What do you want?" "My dad kicked me out," she sobbed. "Please, can I just stay at your place for one night?" I hesitated, not out of sympathy, but because I was trying to figure out her angle. Why not go to Ryder? Why would she come to a guy's house this late at night? Wasn't she worried about what Ryder would think? Thinking about the crazy things she did for Ryder in our last life, I had a feeling this wasn't as simple as it seemed. I made my decision. "It's late, and it's not appropriate. You should go try to talk to your dad. Please, just one night, I swear. And who would even know I was here? Tonight, it's just the two of us," she pleaded, her tone shifting, becoming suggestive. I knew exactly what she was implying, but I felt no attraction, only alarm. What could have happened to make her this desperate? My voice was cold. "No matter what, I'm not opening this door." With that, I ignored her crying from the hallway and went back to my room to sleep. I was thankful my parents were out of town on business. If they had been home, their soft hearts would have never allowed me to leave Chloe locked outside. 14 the next day, when I walked into class, Chloe was glaring at me with pure hatred. She looked terrible. Her eyes were swollen, and she had dark circles under them. Halfway through the first period, Chloe suddenly clapped a hand over her mouth, looking nauseous, and ran to the restroom. Mr. Peterson sighed and addressed the class. "With the big exam just around the corner, I know you all want to study hard, but you can't forget to eat breakfast. It's terrible for your stomach." I assumed she was just feeling sick and didn't pay it much mind. It wasn't my fault she skipped breakfast, but I was wrong. The next day, a rumor started to spread. Chloe was pregnant. The news hit our dull, study-focused environment like a bombshell. This kind of gossip was prime entertainment, and Chloe, being the beautiful class genius, was already in spotlight. The story circulated rapidly. Whenever Chloe walked down the hall, heads would turn to stare. Our homeroom teacher was alerted and called her in for a talk, but Chloe vehemently denied everything. No one knew if it was true or not, but everyone was listening. I was the only one who knew for sure. It wasn't a rumor. Chloe was really pregnant. A few days earlier, Mr. Miller had shown up at my door, demanding that I take responsibility for Chloe. He brandished a lab report from a clinic. "Ethan, I've watched you grow up. How could you do something like this?" he said, his voice dripping with false disappointment. "If you two like each other, I support it. But this is just reckless." My parents were home, and they both turned to stare at me, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. My mom spoke first, her voice trembling slightly. "Mr. Miller, it's not that we don't believe you, but this seems impossible. Our Ethan isn't that kind of boy." Mr. Miller's friendly facade dropped. "Impossible? It's not up to you to decide that. The proof is right here." Are you really going to deny it? I spoke up. What makes you so sure the baby is mine? He glared at me. What girl would joke about her own reputation? From what I know, Chloe has a boyfriend, doesn't she? Why are you so certain it was me? I countered. Mr. Miller was taken aback that I knew about Ryder. He paused, then sneered. Of course it's yours. You were with Chloe a month ago, weren't you? A month ago. I remembered. It was the night Chloe knocked on my door. So that was her plan. I laughed. She came to my door, so what? Let me be perfectly clear. Chloe never set foot inside my house. Mr. Miller looked at me, incredulous. You didn't let her in? How is that possible? You're in love with her. How could you not open the door? My dad, catching on, jumped in. We have a security camera by our front door. Why don't we all take a look at the footage? At the mention of a camera, Mr. Miller fell silent. He switched tactics, becoming belligerent. I don't care. The baby is yours. And if you don't admit it and give us $20,000, this isn't over. Realizing it was all a scam, my parents relaxed. My dad's voice was firm. If you keep this up, we can settle it down at the police station. Defeated, Mr. Miller had no choice but to retreat home. That night, I heard Chloe's piercing screams from across the street. My mom sighed. That poor girl. Yes, she was pitiful. But why should her misery be paid for with someone else's happiness? 16, Chloe could hide it for a while, but not forever. Summer arrived, turning the classroom into an oven. Everyone was in t-shirts, but Chloe started wearing baggy jackets every day. By my count, she was about 4 months along. I knew her belly was starting to show, but why hadn't she gone to a clinic? And even if Chloe refused, why would Mr. Miller let her keep the baby? Chloe soon gave me the answer herself. She confronted me, her eyes blazing with fury. Why wouldn't you just admit it was your baby? I shot back. Why should I admit to something I didn't do? Do you have any idea how many beatings I've gotten because of this? She shrieked. This is all your fault. What's so bad about marrying me? It's not like I'm complaining about how plain you are. She sniffed disdainfully. Oomph. I knew you were unreliable. Ryder is so much better to me. He even promised to come up with $10,000 to marry me. Her logic was completely warped. Looking at her face, which held a strange mix of pride and delusion, felt like trying to reason with a brick wall. I sneered. And what does any of that have to do with me? Chloe was stunned, shocked that I would speak to her so harshly. I walked right past her and left. My coursework was getting more intense by the day. I didn't have time for nonsense. Although I had lived through this exam period once before, I couldn't remember any of the specific questions. I figured being reborn was a miracle in itself. I couldn't expect any more handouts from fate. 17, Chloe's secret finally came out. The day after managing to get her hands on her legal documents, she ran away with Ryder. That morning, when Chloe didn't show up for class, the teacher called her home, only to discover she was missing. Mr. Miller flew into a rage and immediately called the police. They were caught at the bus station. The moment he saw her, Mr. Miller slapped Chloe hard across the face. He then turned to hit Ryder, but Ryder dodged the blow. Whoa. Hey, old man, I didn't kidnap your daughter, Ryder said. She came with me willingly, Mr. Miller roared. Not when she was pregnant. She didn't. Ryder went quiet. Hearing this, the police officer's expressions hardened, and they moved to detain Ryder. But Chloe suddenly dropped to her knees. Please, just let me be with Ryder, she begged. Dad, you said you wanted to sell me off for a $20,000 dowry, but Ryder can't afford that. Please, if you don't let me go, I'll kill myself. The officers' faces changed again, their stern gazes shifting to Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller froze, not expecting the situation to turn on him. You child, I never said such a thing, he sputtered, but his voice was weak and unconvincing. In the end, it was a stalemate. Mr. Miller took Chloe home, and Ryder was let go. The incident, however, confirmed for all of us onlookers that Chloe was indeed pregnant. The expressions on my classmates' faces were a mix of disgust, shock, and pity. I saw Liam Johnson's face cycle through a series of emotions before he finally hung his head in defeat. Honestly, I understood how he felt. A youthful crush always feels pure and perfect, and to suddenly discover that the object of your affection is mired in such a messy reality. I had been disappointed once, too. 18, with less than a month until the exam, Chloe had no interest in studying. Between that and her pregnancy, she dropped out of the prep course and stopped coming to class. I heard that she and Ryder had a wedding back at her house. It was less of a wedding and more of a simple meal between the two families. Even so, Chloe posted about it on her Instagram story. She wrote, "Everything went perfectly. My dream finally came true." The accompanying photo was of a shabby, rural-looking house with old furniture. The only festive touch was a few red paper decorations taped to the windows. I just shook my head. This was the path she had chosen. She would have to walk it herself. 19, I took the exam and scored high enough to get into an even better university than in my previous life. The day the results were released, my parents were ecstatic, and many of my teachers sent their congratulations. Mr. Peterson looked at me with pride. "You're a very determined young man. I hope you continue to work hard in the future." I thanked him sincerely, but he just waved it off. That's what teachers are for. This time around, my life was on an even better track. After a competitive job search, I landed an excellent position. To celebrate, I took my parents out for a fancy dinner. When we returned, I saw a familiar figure lingering near our front door. I almost didn't recognize her. It was Chloe. Her clothes were tattered, and a nasty scar ran from her cheek down to her neck. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears and lunged forward. "Ethan, please, you have to help me. I was wrong. I know I was wrong now." My parents and I were stunned. The Chloe from my past life had graduated from a prestigious university, found a good job, and saved up a considerable amount of money. When she came to see me for that last dinner, she was stylishly dressed, carrying a designer bag worth thousands, the very picture of a sophisticated, successful woman. This withered person in front of me bore no resemblance to that image. I instinctively shielded my parents, pushing them back as I yelled, "What do you want? I have nothing to do with you." Chloe kept trying to grab me, but I pushed her away. My mom, protected by my dad and me, pulled out her phone and called the police. I carefully kept my distance from Chloe until the police car arrived, only then letting out a breath of relief. 20, I went with Chloe to the police station to give a statement, and that's where I learned what had happened. It turned out that shortly after their wedding, she discovered that Ryder was not the man she thought he was. The carefree, rebellious spirit she had fallen for was never directed at her. Instead, it brought a constant stream of other women into their lives. And they had never legally gotten married. That's why Ryder felt he could do whatever he wanted. While pregnant, Chloe was expected to cook and clean alongside Ryder's mother every day. One day, exhausted, she was hanging laundry on the roof of their apartment building when she lost her footing and fell. The doctors told her she would never be able to have children again. Upon hearing this, Ryder's mother threw her out of the house and demanded her family return the $10,000 dowry. But Mr. Miller already had the money. When he heard what happened, he packed up and moved out of the city, leaving his daughter to fend for herself. In a rare moment of pity, Ryder let her come back. Chloe finally understood that she wasn't some campus goddess anymore. Here, no one would praise her or cater to her. She lived in Ryder's home, enduring his mother's daily verbal abuse. To make matters worse, Ryder started drinking heavily. When he was drunk, he would beat her. The scar on her face was from when he'd slashed at her with a knife. "He's going to kill me. I'm serious," she cried to me. "You don't have a marriage license, so it's not legally domestic abuse," I told her calmly. "You can just report him for assault." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "If you're not going to help me, fine, but why are you being so vicious? You want me to report my own husband?" I just shrugged. This was the last piece of advice I would ever offer her. You can't wake someone who is pretending to be asleep. Chloe had been a top student. She was smart enough to figure this out on her own. She just didn't want to cling to the fantasy that Ryder would change and they would live happily ever after. She glared at me. "I'm telling you, even if Ryder doesn't have your education or your income, he's 1,000 times better than you." Right. I muttered dismissively, quickly getting into the Uber I'd called to take me home. I closed my eyes and ignored the sound of Chloe desperately screaming my name as the car pulled away. 21, the first thing I did was go to the hospital for a full physical. I only relaxed after the results came back completely normal. Given Chloe's current state, I couldn't help but be paranoid. Chloe tried camping out in front of my house a few more times, but each time I called security to have her removed. After a few attempts, she finally realized I wasn't going to give in and stopped coming around. That evening, Liam Johnson texted me. He said Chloe had suddenly contacted him, asking for money. Since Chloe dropped out, Liam and I had actually become friends. He had even apologized for his past hostility toward me. I just laughed it off. I knew his actions weren't really about me. He was just trying to show off for Chloe. I texted back, teasing him. "We didn't actually lend her any, did you?" He replied, "No way. I'm not crazy." 22 My summer break was ending soon. Even though I hadn't seen Chloe in days, I was worried about leaving my parents here alone. Since my new job was in another city, we decided it was best for all of us to move. Shortly after I started my new job, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was impatient. "Is this Ethan Hayes? Chloe's dying. She wants to see you. Come if you have time, don't if you don't." There was a brief silence before the person added, "This is Ryder," and hung up. I had no idea how Ryder got my number, but I was stunned to hear that Chloe was dying. I glanced at the calendar and realized it was the anniversary of the day Chloe had invited me to dinner in my past life, the day she killed me. It seemed fate had a strange sense of humor. I went to Ryder's house. Chloe was lying in a bed, skeletal and frail. A foul odor emanated from her. It was clear she hadn't been cared for. She looked at me, her eyes hazy. "Ethan, why are you still alive?" Something about her was different. I looked closer and saw a change in her expression. It was a look of calm self-assurance, one I had only ever seen on the face of the Chloe from my past life. The look of someone who thought she was entitled to the world. I stopped about 10 feet from her bed. She stared at me for a long time, and then she began to cry. I was wrong. I regret everything. I only realized at the very end it was you I loved all along. Her words stirred nothing in me. "You want me to take you away from here?" My directness seemed to embarrass her. I said flatly, "That's not going to happen. This is the ending you fought so hard for. You should see it through to the end." I turned and walked out. Just outside the door, I ran into Ryder. He was on crutches, holding the hand of a young woman. When he saw me, he asked, "She's still alive?" I nodded, having no desire to speak with him. Ryder had gained a lot of weight. His face was bloated, and he was missing a leg. He looked nothing like the carefree young man on the motorcycle. 23, Chloe died that night. I didn't know what illness she had, but I had my doubts about how she died. When I saw her during the day, she hadn't looked like someone who wouldn't last another 24 hours. The official story from Ryder's family was that she succumbed to her illness. Mr. Miller returned just long enough to hastily arrange a funeral, and then she was gone from the world. About 2 weeks later, Liam told me what really happened. Apparently, Chloe, in a fit of nostalgia, had insisted that Ryder take her for a motorcycle ride to recapture their youth. Once again, they wore no helmets. They thought that after years of riding, nothing would happen. But that night, they crashed. Both were rushed to the emergency room. Ryder's mother was hysterical. Ryder himself was relatively lucky. Seeing the crash was imminent, he jumped from the bike. Chloe wasn't so fortunate. She took the full impact. Ryder lost a leg, but survived. Chloe was just waiting to die. The hospital bills were astronomical, and Ryder refused to pay any more for her care, so he had her brought home. His mother cursed her daily, calling her a jinx who had brought nothing but bad luck since the day she arrived and was already trying to find Ryder a new girlfriend. But Chloe stubbornly clung to life. Since there was no marriage license, it didn't legally matter, but the new girlfriend was getting impatient. 24 Liam, who had become a police officer after graduation, took a sip of his beer. Ryder's been arrested, he told me, for intentional homicide. It turned out that Liam was the officer in charge of the case. I felt a strange sense of cosmic irony. In my first life, Chloe killed me for Ryder. In this one, Ryder killed Chloe for a new woman. "What goes around comes around," I said, the words tasting like release. With that, the resentment I had held in my heart finally dissipated. The memory of Chloe Miller faded, destined to never occupy my thoughts again. I bought gifts and visited all my old teachers to say goodbye, then prepared to leave with my parents. My old mentor, Mr. Peterson, was retired now, enjoying his time with his grandchildren. He gave me his blessing. "You have a bright future ahead of you." I knew he was right.